Hey guys, Matt Robinson here, founder of the Professional Investors Guild. Welcome to this edition of Ask the Pig. I'll get to our question here in just a second, but for those of you who are brand new to us, or maybe never seen one of my videos before, just happened across us on YouTube, you can find out more about us and get a couple of great free resources that I'm sure you will find valuable to your real estate investing business. You could be new, brand new, or an experienced investor, but you can grab those gifts over at pigfreegift.com. PIG is the acronym for our Professional Investors Guild, but again, that's pigfreegift.com. Go over there and get signed up, and we'll give you some great information and give you emails every once in a while about our videos when we post them and other stuff that we've posted on our blog that I know you'll find valuable. All free information. Hope you enjoy it. But today's question from Ask the Pig is, how do you value diseconomies? Now, I get this question quite a bit. Now, people don't always use the phrase diseconomy because not everybody knows what that means. But basically, it is how do you determine the value of a property that has something around it that doesn't necessarily have to do with the property itself that affects the value. Like, let's say a neighborhood that was flooded. Now, sometimes that affects the house because the house itself was flooded, but sometimes it doesn't. There are sometimes where there was just a flood in the neighborhood or in the area. Maybe this house wasn't flooded, but the fear or the concern that another future flood might take place affects the value of this property negatively. It could be, not too long ago, a few weeks ago, I had somebody email me to determine the value of a house that backed up to a cemetery, okay? Not everybody likes to look in their backyard and see a Stephen King novel. So, that is certainly going to affect the value of property. Or, every once in a while you'll drive through a neighborhood and you'll see there's that one house that has like the big power plant thing, the big whatever it's called, in their backyard. I remember I sold a house a couple years ago to a couple when I was still acting as a real estate agent, and they bought a house in a neighborhood, and it was a brand new neighborhood, so they were getting a new construction home, and they were building their home, and they were almost finished with it, and within just a few weeks of them closing on it, they put up a massive water tower. Absolute terrible eyesore, even with it painted and everything. This massive water tower, like 3 doors down from their house. So certainly that is going to affect the value because not everybody wants to live next to the massive water tower in the neighborhood. So that is a diseconomy. It's not the house itself has a problem. It's not that it's functionally obsolete. It's not that it has issues, but that the surrounding neighborhood. So in order to value that, it really does, it's kind of like valuing everything. It goes back to comps and comparable sales, but in just a little bit of a different way. And this is how it is. If I'm looking at, let's say, the one with the cemetery in the backyard, that cemetery, of course, runs for a good length of time, okay, so a good length of stretch of road there. So there's not a ton of houses, so there's not a lot of data, but there's probably 10 or 12 houses that back up to that cemetery. Well, if you go with only 10 or 12 houses, because there's not a lot of data, you may not be able to find a house that's sold in the last 6 months to a year on the cemetery that's somewhat comparable to your house, so it makes it hard for you to determine a value. So what you go back and do is just go find the 2 or 3 houses against the cemetery that were the most recent to sell. So let's say one sold in 2009 and one sold in 2005. Now, if you've been an investor for any time at all, you know those were very different time periods, right? You have 2009 where the market was crashing, 2005 where it was booming. So obviously we're not just taking the values and using that to determine our value. What we are doing is we'll go back to the 2005 house and find out how much it sold for. Then we would find other comparable houses in that neighborhood that don't back up to the cemetery and find the difference. So if you have a 1,500 square foot house that was in average condition and it sold for $150, and then you have a 1,500 square foot house in average condition that was not against the cemetery and it sold for $160, then in that neighborhood it was about a $10,000 reduction for being up against the cemetery. And you may, if you look at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 houses, you may see across the board there's, say, a 5%, 8%, 10% reduction for the homes that are against the cemetery. So now you would fast forward to 2015, run your comps on all those houses in that neighborhood, and then deduct 5, 8, 10%, whatever it was that you found. Same thing with the power plant houses. Again, you may not be looking at the same year sold, and you may not even be looking at the same neighborhood. Let's say you find, a house with power thing, tower, behind the house is not going to be very often. You may not even have more than one in one neighborhood. So you go around and you look at all the houses that had one in any neighborhood, and then look at the difference in the year built. And again, even if they're completely different neighborhoods, where one sells for $300,000 and the other one sells for $120,000, you can still determine a percentage difference between the houses that had the power thing and the one that did not have it. And so that is really the strategy you use. Sometimes people get hung up on comps thinking they have to be within 6 months, and normally determine a value you do, but to determine a percentage difference, you can use previous years and even other neighborhoods. Now, when it comes to flooding, houses that have flooded, sometimes that can be a little bit of a different animal. If you're buying a house that has been flooded and there has not been any other houses that they've been fixed up and rehabbed and resold, so that you kind of have an idea of what the market is able to get for a home that was recently flooded, then I would really just recommend that you avoid it. I just think there's way too many houses out there and way too many opportunities for you that there's no reason to jump into something where you can't get a good firm value, especially if you're a beginner. If it's one of your first 3, 4, 5 deals, just find something else. If you're experienced, you've done a lot of deals, you've got a safety net of cash that if it didn't go great and you lost a little money or you just didn't make a bunch and you don't have a lot going on, and you love the house, you love the deal, you want to go for it, I would usually make at least a 10% reduction. That's usually the number I use if I can't come up with anything else, is about 10%. But again, if you don't feel real confident about it, if you're not experienced or don't have some kind of a safety net, it's really best to just move on, find a different deal. Sometimes when you can't find deals and you find one that's flooded, the reason why you found it is because nobody else wanted it a lot of times, and so it's probably best, especially if you're a beginner, just to avoid it. But anyway, I hope that helps you guys, because again, that question comes up a lot. Diseconomies, trying to value houses that are just a little bit unique, or there's something about that house, even though it's a similar house, there's something about the area or immediately around it that's different, and that has to be valued differently, because it's really important you come up with good values, after repair values, to run your numbers off of. Otherwise, the whole formula doesn't make sense, and you can oftentimes lose money, and obviously that's not why we're in business. So anyway, hope that helps you guys out. Again, if you haven't watched these videos before, you're not connected with us, go to pigfreegift.com and sign up. We'll be sure to give you great information as much as we possibly can. And until next time, we'll see you here, right back here on the next edition of Ask the Pig. Have a great day.